The war had lasted 300 years. Billions had died on both sides. The humans and the Velkari had fought across dozens of star systems, burning worlds and destroying fleets. Nobody could remember anymore why it had started. Nobody cared. All that mattered was survival. Queen Nira stood before the High Council of the Velkari Empire. Her forearms were folded across her chest, too high and too low, in the traditional pose of royal authority. Her silver skin gleamed under the council chamber lights. Her eyes, large and dark like pools of ink, scanned the faces of her advisors. They were afraid. Good. They should be afraid of what she was about to propose. "We cannot continue this war," Nira said. Her voice was calm but firm. "Our resources are depleted. Our people are exhausted. The humans are no different. If we continue fighting, both civilizations will collapse." The council members shifted uncomfortably. General Minho, commander of the Royal Guard, spoke first. "What solution do you propose, my queen?" Nira took a deep breath. "A marriage, between myself and a human representative." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Advisors shouted over each other. Some called it madness. Others called it treason. Princess Hana, Nira's younger sister, stood abruptly. "You would tie our bloodline to those monsters?" "They killed our parents." "And we killed theirs," Nira replied coldly. "Millions of them, billions. The killing must stop, Hana. This is the only way." Across the galaxy, in the human capital of New Geneva, a similar conversation was taking place. The United Earth Council debated for hours. Finally, they agreed. The marriage would happen. But who would they send? Captain Deho sat in his small apartment, staring at the stars through his window. He was 35 years old and felt like he was 100. He had fought in 17 major battles. He had seen friends die. He had killed more enemies than he could count. His hands were steady, but his heart was tired. The knock on his door came at midnight. 2 government officials in dark suits stood in the hallway. "Captain Deho, you have been selected for a special assignment." 3 days later, Deho stood in a shuttle heading toward neutral space. They had briefed him on everything. The Velkari, their culture, their biology, Queen Nira herself. He studied the information, memorizing details about his future wife. She was a warrior queen, they said, strong, intelligent, ruthless when necessary. She had personally led fleets into battle. The wedding took place on Station Unity, a massive structure built specifically for this occasion. It floated in neutral space between human and Velkari territory. Billions watched the ceremony on screens across both civilizations. Deho wore a simple military dress uniform, dark blue with silver decorations. He stood at the altar waiting. His face was calm, but inside his chest his heart pounded. He was a soldier. He knew how to face death. But this was different. This was permanent. The doors opened. Queen Nira entered. She was taller than Deho by a full head. Her forearms moved with elegant grace. She wore traditional Velkari royal garments, flowing robes of deep purple and gold. Her face was not human, but there was something beautiful about the way she carried herself. Dignity, strength, purpose. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, neither moved. Then Nira walked forward, her steps measured and regal. When she reached him, she extended her upper right hand. Human style. She had studied their customs too. Deho took her hand. It was warm. He had expected it to be cold, alien, but it felt alive, real. He saw something in her eyes then. Recognition. She was as nervous as he was. The ceremony blended both traditions. A human priest and a Velkari elder spoke words of unity and peace. Deho and Nira exchanged vows in both languages. He promised to honor her people. She promised to honor his. When it was done, they signed the treaty that would bind their civilizations together. The reception was awkward. Human and Velkari dignitaries stood on opposite sides of the grand hall, eyeing each other with suspicion. Deho and Nira sat at the head table, making small talk through translators. "Your uniform is very simple," Nira observed. "Human military tradition values function over decoration?" "Yes," Deho replied. "We believe a soldier's worth comes from actions, not appearances." Nira nodded slowly. "A wise philosophy. Perhaps our cultures are not so different." The honeymoon period began. Deho moved to the Velkari throne world, a planet called Velkar Prime. The palace was enormous, carved from blue crystal that glowed in the light of their twin suns. Everything was built for beings larger than humans. Deho felt small here, out of place, but Nira tried to make him comfortable. She had human furniture brought to his quarters. She assigned him a personal guard, a young Velkari warrior named Jiwan who spoke perfect human standard language. She invited him to council meetings, asking his opinion on matters of state. Slowly, carefully, they began to know each other. In the evenings, they would walk together through the palace gardens. Nira showed him plants from a dozen different worlds. She told him stories of Velkari history, of great warriors and wise queens. Deho shared human poetry and philosophy. He taught her about Earth, about oceans and forests and mountains. "Your world sounds beautiful," Nira said one evening. They stood beside a fountain, watching the water dance in the fading light. "I would like to see it someday." "You will," Deho promised. "When peace is real. When our people trust each other enough." Nira turned to face him. All four of her hands moved to hold his two. "Do you regret this? The marriage?" Deho considered the question honestly. "I regret the circumstances that made it necessary. But no, I don't regret meeting you." Something shifted between them in that moment. The political arrangement began to feel like something more. Something genuine. Trade routes opened between human and Velkari space. Ships that once carried weapons now carried goods and culture. Scientists exchanged research. Artists collaborated on works that blended both styles. Children on both worlds grew up seeing images of the royal couple, learning that peace was possible. But in the shadows, others watched and waited. Not everyone wanted peace. Some believed the old hatreds were too deep to forget. Some thought that alliances made civilizations weak. These people began to gather in secret, planning something terrible. 6 months after the wedding, Deho stood with Nira on the palace balcony, looking out at the city below. Velkari citizens moved through the streets, going about their lives. Somewhere out there, human visitors walked among them. It was fragile and new, but it was real. "We did it," Nira said softly. Peace, Deho wanted to believe her. But his soldier's instincts whispered warnings. He had seen war too long to trust peace so easily. He said nothing, simply put his arm around his wife and held her close, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. 6 months into the marriage, Deho woke each morning to the sight of twin suns rising over Velkar Prime. He had grown used to sleeping in the large bed designed for Velkari royalty. He had learned to eat their food, though he still missed coffee. Small things, normal things, the kind of adjustments that made a place feel like home, but this was not a normal marriage, and his work was far from done. The morning meeting started early. Deho joined Nira and her council to discuss the day's business. Today's topic was border security. Human and Velkari ships still patrolled their respective territories, still watched each other with suspicion. They needed a joint defense system, something that would make both sides feel safe. "The humans will never agree to Velkari ships in their core systems," argued one advisor, an older male named Tejo. His scales had faded with age. Turning from silver to pale gray, Deho leaned forward. "You're right. They won't. Just as the Velkari won't accept human vessels near Velkar Prime, so we create buffer zones, jointly patrolled space where both militaries work together." General Minho nodded thoughtfully. "Mixed crews?" "Eventually," Deho said. "Start with parallel patrols, ships from both sides flying together but separate. As trust builds, we integrate the crews." Princess Hana, who attended these meetings but rarely spoke, finally broke her silence. "You speak as if trust can be built so easily, as if 300 years of war can be forgotten." "Not forgotten," Deho replied, meeting her eyes, "but set aside. We honor our dead by ensuring no one else has to die." Hana's expression remained cold, but she said nothing more. Deho knew she hated him. She had made that clear from the start. Her parents had died in a human attack 15 years ago. She had every right to her hatred. He could only hope that time would change her mind. After the meeting, Nira pulled Deho aside. "You handled that well. Hana is stubborn, but she listens more than she admits." "She's a good officer," Deho said. "Loyal, smart. Those qualities matter more than whether she likes me." Nira smiled, a gesture she had learned from him. The Velkari did not naturally smile, but she had adopted the human expression. "You are patient with her." "With all of them." "I appreciate that." The real work happened on the border worlds. Deho and Nira traveled together to planets where humans and Velkari lived side by side, for the first time in centuries. They visited markets where traders from both species exchanged goods. They toured factories where mixed crews built new technology together. They attended ceremonies where children from both civilizations played together. On a planet called Vestin 4, Deho watched human and Velkari children kick a ball back and forth in a dusty street. The human children were small and quick. The Velkari children were larger but less agile. Together they made it work, laughing and shouting in a mixture of both languages. An old human woman approached Deho. Her face was lined with age and hardship. "Is it real, Captain?" "The peace?" Deho looked at the children, then back at her. "I'm trying to make it real. But it takes all of us, every person who chooses to try." The woman nodded slowly. "My son died in the war. 20 years ago. I hated the Velkari for so long." She paused, watching the children play. "But I'm tired of hating. If you can marry one of them, I suppose I can try to live beside them." These moments kept Deho going. Each small victory, each person willing to try. But for every supporter, there were others who resisted. The messages started arriving in his private communications. Threats from human separatist groups. They called him a traitor. They said he had sold out humanity for alien comfort. Some threatened to kill him. Others threatened Nira. Deho showed the messages to Jiwan, his Velkari guard. "Have you been receiving similar threats?" Jiwan nodded grimly. "The Talon Brotherhood, a Velkari extremist group. They believe the Queen has dishonored our species by marrying a human. They want to end the alliance. How organized are they?" "Intelligence suggests several thousand members across multiple worlds. They have resources, weapons, ships." Jiwan paused. "They are dangerous, Captain." Deho filed the information away. Extremists were predictable. They would try something eventually. The question was when and how. His relationship with Nira deepened. What had started as political convenience had grown into genuine partnership. They worked together smoothly, finishing each other's thoughts in meetings. They understood each other's strengths and weaknesses. And in private, in the quiet moments, they talked about things that had nothing to do with politics. "Tell me about your family," Nira asked one evening. They sat in their private quarters drinking tea. Velkari tea was bitter, but Deho had acquired a taste for it. "My parents died when I was young. Ship accident. I was raised by my aunt. She was a teacher. She wanted me to be a teacher too." He smiled sadly. "I became a soldier instead. Do you regret it?" "Sometimes. But the war needed soldiers. I was good at it. And now maybe all those years of fighting can help me build peace." Nira set down her cup. "My parents died in battle. Both of them. They fought together, commanded fleets together, died together. Hana and I watched it happen through a video feed. I was 20 years old. Too young to become queen, but I had no choice." "I'm sorry," Deho said. "Do not be sorry. Be present. Be here now, helping me make sure no other child has to watch their parents die in war." He reached out and took her hand. She squeezed back with two of her hands, the gesture both human and Velkari at once. General Minho became an unexpected ally. The old warrior had been skeptical at first, but Deho's military knowledge impressed him. They spent hours discussing tactics and strategy, comparing human and Velkari approaches to warfare. Minho admitted that humans were more creative, more willing to try unusual solutions. Deho admitted that Velkari discipline and coordination were superior. "We could learn from each other," Minho said one day during a training exercise. They watched as human and Velkari soldiers practiced together, clumsy but trying. "That's the idea," Deho replied. But beneath the surface of progress, tension built. Intelligence reports showed increased activity from both human and Velkari extremist groups. They were communicating with each other, something unprecedented. Enemies working together to destroy peace. It made a twisted kind of sense. They shared a common goal: war. Deho brought the reports to the Security Council. "We need to take this seriously. These groups are coordinating. Planning something," Princess Hana scoffed. "Let them plan. What can a few extremists do against the combined might of our militaries?" "Terrorists don't need armies," Deho said quietly. "They just need one successful attack to undo everything we've built. Fear is contagious. One bombing, one massacre, and all the trust we've created will evaporate." Nira agreed. "Increase security at all joint installations. Double the guards at diplomatic facilities. And find out what they're planning." But intelligence gathering took time. Time they might not have. Late one night, Daeho stood on the palace balcony, unable to sleep. The city below glowed with lights. Human and Velkari lights, different colors and styles mixing together in patterns that looked almost beautiful. Nira joined him. "You are worried?" "Always," he admitted. "Peace is harder than war. In war, you know who the enemy is. In peace, the enemy hides and waits, then we will wait too, and watch. And when they move, we will be ready." Daeho wished he had her confidence, but he said nothing, simply held his wife close and watched the city sleep, unaware of the storm gathering in the shadows. The explosion tore through the morning market on Koros Prime at exactly 9:30 local time. The first bomb detonated near the human quarter, vaporizing 100 shoppers instantly. 3 seconds later, a second bomb erupted in the Velkari district, then a third, then a fourth. By the time the sirens began wailing, over 2,000 people were dead or dying. Daeho was in a strategy meeting when the news arrived. A young aide burst through the doors, her face pale. "My queen, there's been an attack. Koros Prime, multiple bombings." The room fell silent. Nira stood slowly. "Casualties?" "Thousands. Both human and Velkari. The colony is asking for immediate assistance." Daeho's military training took over. "Deploy medical ships from both fleets. Seal all spaceports. Nobody leaves that planet until we know who did this." Within hours, Daeho was aboard a fast courier ship heading to Koros Prime. Nira had wanted to come, but her council insisted it was too dangerous. Instead, she sent her best intelligence officer. Commander Jiwon met Daeho at the landing pad, her face grim. "It was coordinated," Jiwon said as they moved through the devastated streets. Bodies lay covered in sheets. Buildings had collapsed into rubble. The smell of smoke and death hung heavy in the air. 4 bombs perfectly timed. Professional work. Any claims of responsibility? 3 different groups have claimed credit, all lies. None of them have the capability for something this sophisticated. Daeho knelt beside a crater where 1 bomb had detonated. The blast pattern was unusual. He had seen thousands of explosions in his career. This was different. The bombs were placed to maximize casualties across both populations. Whoever did this wanted to kill humans and Velkari equally. "Someone who wants to restart the war," Jiwon said quietly. They spent 3 days on Koros Prime, sifting through evidence, bomb fragments, surveillance footage, witness reports. Slowly, a picture emerged. The attackers had been both human and Velkari, working together. They had used forged credentials to enter secure areas. They had planned this for months. "The Talon Brotherhood and the human separatists," Daeho said, studying the data on his portable screen. "They're cooperating. How is that possible?" Jiwon asked. "They hate each other. They hate peace more." Daeho pulled up a communication intercept. "Look at this. Coded messages between known extremist members. They've been planning this for weeks, maybe months. We need to find out what they're planning next." But they were already too late. The second attack came 5 days later. This time, the target was the human diplomatic station orbiting Velkar Prime. A small ship approached, broadcasting standard identification codes. The codes were valid, current. Nobody suspected anything until the ship detonated, destroying itself and taking the entire diplomatic wing with it. 300 people died, ambassadors, staff, visitors, gone in an instant. Daeho watched the news footage with growing horror. He recognized some of the victims. He had worked with them, shared meals with them. Now they were dead. Nira stood beside him in the palace command center. Her 4 hands were clenched into fists. "Who did this? Give me names." General Minho brought the preliminary report. The ship was registered to a Velkari transport company. But the company was a front. We traced it back to a network of shell corporations. "The trail leads to Admiral Soyeon." "Admiral Soyeon?" Nira's voice was sharp. "She's one of our most decorated officers." "She lost her entire family in the war," Minho said quietly. "Her mate. Her children, all killed in a human orbital bombardment 15 years ago. She's been part of the Talon Brotherhood since its founding. We just didn't know it." Daeho felt cold. A high-ranking military officer. With access to codes, resources, intelligence. She's planning something bigger. This was just the beginning. He was right. Within hours, evidence emerged linking Admiral Soyeon to both attacks. But more troubling, the investigation revealed her next target, She had a fleet, 20 ships hidden in a dead system, and she planned to use them to attack both human and Velkari targets, making it look like each side had betrayed the other. It's a false flag operation, Deho explained to the Security Council. She'll attack human colonies with ships that appear to be Velkari military, and she'll attack Velkari outposts with ships disguised as human vessels. Both sides will think the other broke the peace. War becomes inevitable. Princess Hana studied the reports. When does she plan to strike? Soon. Within days, maybe hours. Nira sent urgent communications to the human government explaining the situation. But the damage was already done. The bombing of the diplomatic station had killed too many important people. Human politicians were screaming for retaliation. Military units were mobilizing. The peace faction in the Human Council was losing ground. They're going to declare war, Deho said, reading the incoming messages. They don't believe us about Soyan. They think it's an excuse. Then we stop her ourselves, Nira declared, before she can launch her attacks. But the Velkari High Council disagreed. They called an emergency session. Deho was not allowed to attend. He waited outside the council chambers while Nira argued their case. He could hear raised voices through the thick doors shouting accusations. When the doors finally opened, Nira emerged. Her face was composed, but Deho could see the anger in her eyes. They have voted to remove my authority over military matters. The War Tribunal has been reactivated. Princess Hana will command the defense forces. They don't believe you, Deho said. They believe Soyan was involved, but they think the humans are using it as cover to prepare their own attack. Trust has collapsed. That evening, the human government made its announcement. War was declared. All diplomatic relations severed. All trade ceased. Citizens of both species were ordered to return to their home territories immediately. The peace was over. Deho stood in their quarters, packing a small bag. Guards would be coming for him soon. He was a human in enemy territory now. They would arrest him or worse. Nira entered. Where are you going? Wherever they take me. I'm being declared a security risk. The council wants me imprisoned. No. Nira's voice was firm. I won't allow it. You don't have the authority anymore. The tribunal controls the military now. I am still queen. She moved to him, taking his hands in all four of hers. Deho, we can still stop this. Soyan is the key. If we can capture her, expose her entire plan, prove that this was all manipulation. How? We don't know where she is. A chime sounded at the door. Nira opened it. General Minho stood outside with Commander Jiwon beside him. My queen, Minho said. Captain, I have information. One of my intelligence officers cracked Soyan's communication network. We know where her fleet is hidden. We know when she plans to strike. Jiwon stepped forward. There's more. She's planning to assassinate you, my queen, and frame the captain for it. She wants to make this personal. To ensure the war cannot be stopped. Deho felt his blood run cold. When? Tonight. She has operatives in the palace. They're moving into position now. Nira looked at Deho. Then we move first. We stop her before she can act. The tribunal won't listen, Deho said. We need proof. Undeniable proof, Minho nodded. The Palace Intelligence Center has all the evidence. But it's encrypted, protected. Only a few people have access. I can get us in, Jiwon said. But we'll have to move quietly. If the tribunal finds out what we're doing, they'll stop us. Deho made his decision. Then let's move, now. Nira hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. General, prepare a team. We're going to the intelligence center. My queen, if you're caught, and then I'll be caught trying to save my people. Better that than sitting idle while everything burns. They moved through the palace corridors in the dark hours before dawn. A small team. Quiet and quick. But as they approached the intelligence center, alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the palace. We've been discovered, Minho said. Deho heard footsteps, many of them, coming from multiple directions. They're coming for us. Soyan's people. The coup has begun. The first soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor, 20 of them wearing the dark armor of palace security, but their weapons were raised, pointed directly at the queen and her small group. Your Majesty, the lead soldier called out. By order of the War Tribunal, you are to return to your quarters immediately. The human is to be taken into custody. Nira stepped forward, all four arms spread in a gesture of authority. I am your queen. Lower your weapons. The soldiers hesitated. Training and loyalty fought against their orders. But the lead soldier shook his head. The tribunal has issued a state of emergency decree. All authority rests with them until the crisis is resolved. Please, my queen, don't make this difficult. These soldiers are not loyal to the tribunal, Minho whispered to Daeho. They're Soyun's people. In palace uniforms, Daeho saw it then. Small details. The way they held their weapons. The formation they maintained. These were not palace guards. They were military special forces disguised and placed here for exactly this moment. Run, Daeho said quietly to Nira. When I move, you run. I'm not leaving you. Trust me. Daeho moved. Years of combat training took over. He dove to the side as the soldiers opened fire, their energy weapons scorching the walls. Minho and his loyal guards returned fire, creating chaos in the narrow corridor. Daeho grabbed Nira's arm and pulled her into a side passage. They ran through the palace, a place Daeho had learned well over the past months. He knew the back corridors, the service passages, the routes that few people used. Behind them he could hear shouting and more weapons fire. The palace was under attack from within. The intelligence center. Nira gasped as they ran. We still need to reach it. Different plan now, Daeho said. We need to survive first, then worry about evidence. They burst into a large ceremonial hall. Beautiful tapestries hung from the walls depicting centuries of Velkhari history. Daeho's military mind immediately assessed the space. Multiple exits. High ceiling. Good cover behind the pillars. Commander Jiwan caught up with them, breathing hard. The palace is compromised. Soyun has at least 50 soldiers inside. They're moving to secure the throne room and the communication center. Where's Minho? Nira asked, holding the corridor. Buying us time. Jiwan's expression was grim. We're cut off from our loyal forces. The tribunal ordered most of the palace guard to defensive positions outside. Soyun planned this perfectly. Daeho thought fast. The communication center. If she controls that, she controls all transmissions. She can send whatever messages she wants, pretending to be the queen. Or pretending to be you, Nira said, understanding dawning. She could order human forces to attack. Make it look like you betrayed us. A new sound echoed through the palace, explosions. Daeho recognized the pattern. Breaching charges. They're coming through the walls. Multiple entry points. Military assault tactics, Nira's face hardened. Then we fight here, now we make our stand. My queen, we should escape, Jiwan said. Get you to safety. There is no safety. Not if Soyun succeeds. We stop her here or we lose everything. Daeho admired her courage, but he also understood tactics. They were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped in a palace full of enemies. They needed help. His personal communicator buzzed. An incoming message on a secure military channel. He checked it quickly. The sender was Lieutenant Yunji, his old second-in-command from his days in active service. Daeho, if you're receiving this, listen carefully. We've been investigating the attacks independently. Human intelligence has discovered Soyun's plan. She has a hidden fleet in the Corvin Nebula, 20 ships armed and ready. She plans to strike human colonies within 6 hours. We need the coordinates from Velkhari intelligence. Can you get them? Daeho showed the message to Nira. If we can get that information to the human fleet, they can intercept Soyun's ships before they attack. Prove that this was all a setup. The intelligence center, Nira said. All the data is there, but it's heavily encrypted. Can you access it remotely? Nira thought for a moment. There's a terminal in the Queen's private study. It has emergency access to all systems, but it's on the other side of the palace. Then that's where we go. They moved through the palace like ghosts. Daeho led, using every trick he had learned in years of urban combat. Stay quiet, move fast, avoid contact when possible. When they encountered Soyun's soldiers, they struck quickly and silently, taking them down before alarms could be raised. Jiwan proved to be an excellent fighter. She moved with fluid grace, her forearms making her deadly in close combat. Together, she and Daeho cleared a path through the palace. They reached the Queen's study after 20 minutes of careful movement. Nira immediately went to the terminal, her hands flying across the controls. I'm in. Accessing the intelligence database now. Daeho and Jiwan guarded the door. Outside, they could hear the sounds of fighting. General Minho was still resisting, rallying loyal guards to fight back against the coup. But they were losing. The attackers had numbers and surprise on their side. I have it, Nira said. Soyun's fleet location. Attack plans. Communication log showing her coordination with human extremists, everything. Send it, Deho said. Broadcast it to everyone. Human military, Valkyrie forces. Make it public. Nira's fingers danced across the controls. Broadcasting now. Sending on all channels, military and civilian. Everyone will see it. The door exploded inward. The blast threw Deho backward. His ears rang from the concussion. Through the smoke he saw armored figures entering the room. More of Soyon's soldiers. And leading them was Princess Hana. Deho's heart sank. Hana worked with Soyon. The queen's own sister was part of the coup. Hana aimed her weapon at Nira. Step away from the terminal, sister. Nira stood slowly, positioning herself between Hana and the computer. You're helping Soyon destroy everything we've built. Built? Hana's laugh was bitter. You mean the humiliation you've brought upon our people? Marrying a human? Making us weak? Peace is not weakness, Nira said firmly. Peace with those who killed our parents is betrayal. Hana's weapon never wavered. Soyon showed me the truth. The humans were always planning to betray us. This marriage was just a way to make us lower our guard. Now they're preparing to attack and you're too blind to see it. That's a lie, Deho said, climbing to his feet. Soyon manipulated you. She's planning to attack both sides. Make each think the other started it. More human lies. Hana swung her weapon toward him. You've poisoned my sister's mind. Made her forget who she is. Nira moved, stepping between them again. Hana, listen to me. I know you're hurt. I know you want revenge for our parents. But this is not the way. Soyon is using your pain to destroy everything. She doesn't want justice. She wants endless war. For a moment, Hana hesitated. Doubt flickered in her eyes. But then a new voice cut through the room. Touching speech, my queen. But pointless. Admiral Soyon entered through the destroyed doorway. She was tall, even for a Valkyrie, with ceremonial armor that marked her as high military command. Her face was hard, carved by years of loss and hatred. The transmission has been sent, Soyon said calmly, but it won't matter. By the time anyone verifies the information, my fleet will have already struck. Human colonies will burn, Valkyrie outposts will be destroyed, and everyone will blame the other side. War is inevitable now. Why? Nira asked. Why do this to our people? Because peace with humans is an insult to every Valkyrie who died in the war. Because your marriage makes us look weak. Because I will not let my family's deaths be for nothing. Soyon's eyes were cold. The war must continue until one side is completely destroyed. That is the only real peace. Deho saw the madness in her eyes, the kind of certainty that came from absolute conviction. She would not be reasoned with. Soyon turned to Hana. Princess, complete your mission. Kill them both. Hana raised her weapon. Her hand shook slightly. She looked at Nira, at Deho, at the soldiers surrounding them. Then she looked at Soyon. No, Hana said quietly. What? I said no. Hana lowered her weapon. I may hate humans. I may think this marriage was a mistake. But I won't kill my sister. Not for you. Not for anyone. Soyon's face twisted with rage. You fool. You weak, sentimental fool. She drew her own weapon and fired. Not at Hana, at Nira, but Deho was faster. He threw himself forward, knocking Nira aside. The energy bolt caught him in the shoulder instead, burning through cloth and flesh. Pain exploded through his body, but he stayed conscious through sheer will. The room erupted into chaos. Hana and her soldiers turned on Soyon's forces. Jiwon joined the fight. And Deho, injured but not defeated, pulled Nira to safety behind the heavy desk. You're hurt, Nira said, her hands checking his wound. I'll live. Deho pulled his sidearm, the weapon he had carried through so many battles. But Soyon is escaping. Through the fighting, he saw the Admiral retreating through a side door. She was heading for the roof. For her ship. If she escaped, she could still launch her attack. I'm going after her, Deho said. Not alone, Nira replied. Deho moved through the palace corridors with deadly purpose. The diplomat was gone. The politician had vanished. What remained was the soldier, the warrior who had survived 17 major battles and countless smaller ones. The man who had earned his reputation through blood and fire. His shoulder burned where the energy bolt had struck him. But pain was an old friend. He had learned long ago how to function through injury. The wound would slow him but not stop him. Behind him, Nira followed. She had insisted on coming, and he had not argued. She was a warrior queen, after all. She had commanded fleets. She had fought in battles. She deserved to see this through. They reached the maintenance shaft that led to the upper levels. Soyeon had gone this way. Daeho could see the evidence. Scorch marks on the walls where she had burned through a locked door. Droplets of something dark on the floor. Someone had been wounded. Good. She's heading for the landing pad, Nira said. There's a courier ship kept there for emergencies. How many soldiers with her? At least 10. Maybe more. Daeho checked his weapon. 1 pistol. 20 rounds. Not enough for a prolonged fight. He would need to be smart, quick, precise. They climbed the maintenance shaft in silence. At the top, Daeho paused, listening. He could hear voices above. Soyeon barking orders. Soldiers moving equipment. The whine of a ship powering up its engines. He pushed open the access hatch slowly. The landing pad was wide open, exposed to the night sky. Twin moons cast pale light across the scene. Soyeon stood near her ship, a sleek courier vessel painted in military colors. 10 soldiers surrounded her, all heavily armed. Too many for a direct assault. Daeho needed an advantage. He studied the layout. The landing pad had maintenance equipment scattered around. Fuel lines, power conduits, structural supports, everything he needed. Create a distraction, he whispered to Nira. I'll circle around. What kind of distraction? The loud kind, Nira smiled grimly. She stepped out onto the landing pad, all 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of royal command. Admiral Soyeon, by order of the Queen, you are under arrest. The soldiers spun, weapons raised. Soyeon laughed. You're too late, my queen. In 3 minutes, I'll be off this world. In 3 hours, my fleet will strike. By morning, the war will have resumed in earnest. While they talked, Daeho moved. Silent as a shadow, he circled the perimeter of the landing pad. He reached the first soldier, a young male focused on Nira. Daeho struck from behind, fast and brutal. The soldier went down without a sound. 1 down. 9 to go. You can still stop this, Nira said, trying to keep Soyeon's attention. The evidence has been sent. Both militaries know the truth. Your plan has failed. The truth? Soyeon laughed again. The truth is whatever people choose to believe. And when my ships attack, when human colonies burn and Valkyrie stations explode, people will believe what their eyes tell them. They'll believe they were betrayed. Daeho reached the fuel lines. He pulled a small explosive charge from his belt. Military grade. Every soldier carried them for breaching operations. He set it against the main conduit. Timer set for 30 seconds, then moved on. 2 more soldiers fell to his silent approach. Quick strikes to pressure points. Techniques he had learned from Valkyrie combat instructors. He was adapting, learning, becoming something neither fully human nor Valkyrie in his methods. Something more effective than either. The explosion ripped through the fuel line. Fire erupted across the landing pad. Soldiers scattered, confused and blinded by the sudden chaos. Daeho emerged from the smoke, weapon raised. He fired. 3 shots, 3 targets. Center mass, the way he had been taught decades ago. Clean, efficient, deadly. The remaining soldiers finally located him. Energy bolts cut through the air. Daeho moved, using the smoke and chaos as cover. He rolled behind a maintenance crawler, came up firing, took down another soldier. 5 left plus Soyeon. But these were trained warriors. They adapted quickly, forming a defensive perimeter around their commander. Daeho could not reach them all. Not before they cut him down, Nira charged. She moved with incredible speed, her 4 arms making her formidable in close combat. She struck 1 soldier with enough force to send him flying. Another tried to aim at her, but she was too fast, too close. Her hand closed around his weapon, crushing it. Together, Daeho and Nira fought as a unit. He provided covering fire while she closed the distance. She created openings that he exploited. They had never trained together, never practiced these moves, but they worked in perfect sync. Understanding without words, the last soldier fell. Only Soyeon remained. The admiral stood near her ship, her own weapon drawn. Impressive. The human fights better than I expected, almost like he's one of us. He's better than that, Nira said. He fights for something worth protecting. Sentiment. Soyeon spat the word. That weakness will destroy you both. She fired. Not at them, but at the ship's control panel behind them. Sparks exploded. The entire landing pad began to tilt. Soyeon had damaged the structural supports. The platform was collapsing. Daeho grabbed Nira and pulled her toward the exit. The ground beneath them buckled and twisted. Soyan's ship began to slide, its landing gear screeching against the metal deck. They barely made it through the access hatch before the entire platform gave way. The ship tumbled down the side of the palace, crashing into the lower levels with a massive explosion. Fire bloomed in the night sky. Deho and Nira lay on the floor of the corridor, breathing hard. His shoulder screamed in pain. Her armor was cracked and scorched. "But they were alive, Soyan?" Nira asked. Deho looked down through the ruined hatchway. The ship was a burning wreck far below. Nothing could have survived that crash. "She's gone." "Then it's over." "Not yet." Deho climbed to his feet, helping Nira up. "Her fleet is still out there. 20 ships ready to attack. We stopped her, but her forces might still follow through with the plan." They made their way back down through the palace. The fighting had ended. General Minho had secured the main levels with loyal guards. Princess Hana had arrested the remaining coup soldiers. Commander Jiwan met them in the throne room. "The transmission you sent," Jiwan reported. "It's spreading across both civilizations. People are seeing the evidence. The coordination between extremists. Soyan's plans, the false flag operation, and the fleet?" Daiho asked. "Human military vessels are moving to intercept, but they need the exact coordinates from our intelligence database." Daiho pulled out his communicator, connecting to Lieutenant Yunji. "I'm sending the data now. Corvin Nebula, Sector 7. 20 ships, modified military vessels. They'll be moving to attack positions within the hour." "Received," Yunji replied. "We're dispatching a battle group. They'll arrive in time to stop the attack." Nira moved to her throne, sitting heavily. She looked exhausted, her royal composure finally cracking. "Is it really over?" "The immediate threat, yes," Daiho said. "But the damage has been done. Trust has been broken. The bombings, the attacks, the deaths. People will remember this." Princess Hana entered the throne room. She looked different now, smaller somehow, less certain. "Sister, I'm sorry. I should have seen through Soyan's lies. I let my hatred blind me." Nira stood and embraced her sister. "We were all deceived. What matters is that you chose right when it counted." "The human saved your life," Hana said, looking at Daiho. "He took a shot meant for you. He fought to protect you, protect all of us." She paused. "I was wrong about him. About humans in general, perhaps." Daiho nodded, acknowledging her words but saying nothing. Actions spoke louder than apologies. Reports came in throughout the night. The human battle group had intercepted Soyan's fleet. There had been a brief fight, but without their leader, the extremist forces had surrendered. The evidence from the palace had been verified. Both human and Velkari governments were beginning to understand the scope of the conspiracy, but Daiho knew the real work was just beginning. Proving the conspiracy was one thing. Rebuilding trust was another. The extremists had nearly succeeded in restarting the war. The wound they had inflicted would take years to heal. As dawn broke over Velkar Prime, Daiho stood on a palace balcony with Nira. The city below was scarred from the night's violence, but it was intact, alive. "They saw you fight," Nira said quietly. "My people. They watched footage of you defending the palace." "Defending me?" "They're calling you something in our language. Literally translated, it means the warrior who became fire. I did what was necessary. You were magnificent. Terrifying but magnificent." She took his hand. "I knew you were a soldier, but I didn't truly understand until tonight. When war began, you became something else, something unstoppable." Daiho looked at his hands. They were steady. No shaking, no trembling. Just the hands of a man who had done what needed to be done. "I hoped I would never have to fight again. But I'm glad I could, for you, for peace." "It's not over," Nira said. "The extremists are defeated, but fear remains, suspicion, anger. Then we start again. Rebuild. Prove that peace is stronger than hate." In the city below, people emerged from their homes. Human and Velkari, surveying the damage, helping the wounded, beginning the long process of recovery. And above them, their leaders stood together, a symbol that had been tested by fire and had not broken. The attack on the palace had been contained, but the crisis was far from over. 3 hours after Soyan's death, her fleet struck anyway. The extremist commanders had decided to follow through with the plan, believing they could still ignite total war even without their leader. 18 ships emerged from the Corvin Nebula, their weapons hot and ready. They split into 3 groups, targeting both human colonies and Velkari stations simultaneously. The first wave of attacks hit the mining colony of New Busan, and the Velkari supply depot at Kravik Station. Hundreds died in the initial strikes. Deho was in the palace command center when the news arrived. His injured shoulder had been treated and bandaged, but he ignored the pain. There was no time to rest. He studied the tactical displays, watching the red icons representing enemy ships spread across the star map. General Minho stood beside him. "Our nearest fleet is 2 hours away. The human battle group is closer, but they're outnumbered 3-1. What about the orbital defense platforms?" Deho asked. "Minimal. We reduced defenses as part of the peace treaty." Both sides did. Deho's military mind raced through possibilities. The enemy had surprise in position. They had split their forces to create maximum chaos. Standard defense tactics would not be enough. He needed something unexpected. "Connect me to the human battle group," he said, "and to all Velkari forces in the region." "Combined channel." Minho hesitated. "Captain, you're not in command." "Do it," Nira said, entering the command center. She had changed into military armor, traditional Velkari battle dress. "Give him command authority. Full tactical control. My queen, the tribunal." The tribunal authorized military cooperation in defensive operations. "This is a defensive operation." Her voice carried absolute authority. "Captain Deho has command. All forces will follow his orders." Within minutes, Deho was connected to dozens of ship captains from both species. He pulled up the tactical display, marking positions and vectors. "Listen carefully. We're outnumbered, but we have one advantage. The enemy thinks we're divided. They expect hesitation, confusion, distrust between our forces. We're going to prove them wrong." He outlined his plan quickly and precisely. The human ships would feint toward one enemy group, drawing them out of position. The Velkari forces would swing wide, cutting off their retreat. Combined arms, mutual support, total coordination. It was risky. It required both sides to trust each other completely. "This plan requires us to leave our flanks exposed to human weapons," a Velkari captain protested. "How do we know they won't turn on us?" "You don't," Deho said bluntly. "Just as the human ships will have Velkari vessels at their backs. We either trust each other or we all die separately. Your choice." There was silence on the channel. Then Lieutenant Yunji, commanding the human battle group, spoke up. "I trust Captain Deho. He's never steered us wrong. If he says we work together, we work together." One by one, the other captains agreed. The plan was set. Deho coordinated the battle from the palace command center, but he felt every movement, every maneuver as if he were on the ships themselves. Years of combat experience had taught him to think 3 steps ahead, to anticipate enemy responses, to turn weaknesses into strengths. The human ships moved first, accelerating toward the enemy group threatening the mining colony. The extremist vessels took the bait, breaking formation to pursue. Then the Velkari ships appeared from behind a moon, cutting across their path. The enemy was trapped between 2 forces, unable to maneuver effectively. "All ships, focus fire on their lead vessel," Deho commanded. "Human and Velkari weapons together. Overwhelm their shields." Energy beams and projectile weapons struck the enemy ship simultaneously. Different technologies, different approaches, but devastating when combined. The enemy shields collapsed. The ship tried to retreat but ran directly into a spread of human missiles. It exploded, debris scattering across space. "Enemy Group 1 is breaking formation," reported a sensor officer. "They're attempting to flee." "Don't let them," Deho said. "They'll regroup and attack again. Run them down." The combined fleet pursued, working together with increasing coordination. What had started as an awkward alliance was becoming something more. The crews were learning to fight as one force, compensating for each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. But while they dealt with the first group, the second enemy group struck at Kravik Station. The Velkari outpost had minimal defenses. The attack was brutal and methodical. Deho watched the casualty reports climb, hundreds, then thousands. "We need to disengage and help Kravik," General Minho said urgently. "No," Deho replied. "If we break off now, Group 1 will escape and regroup. We finish what we started, then move to Kravik. People are dying. More will die if we let these ships escape." Deho's voice was cold, calculated. This was the ugly side of command, the mathematics of war, where every choice meant someone lived and someone died. "Trust me." Minho looked at Nira. The Queen nodded. "Follow his orders." 10 minutes later, the first enemy group was destroyed or captured. The combined fleet immediately burned toward Kravik Station at maximum speed. But they were still 20 minutes away. 20 minutes while the station died. Deho studied the tactical situation. The station had some defensive weapons. Automated systems. They were inflicting damage, but not enough. The enemy ships were hammering the station methodically, section by section. Then he saw it. A small detail on the sensor display. A civilian freighter, registered as human, was near the station. It had been there to deliver supplies when the attack began. "Get me a comlink to that freighter," Deho ordered. A gruff voice answered. "This is Captain Taewon of the freighter Morning Star. Who the hell is this?" "This is Captain Deho, currently commanding the defense fleet. I need you to do something for me. I'm a cargo hauler, not a warship. I've got no weapons. You don't need weapons. You need courage." Deho outlined what he needed. A crazy, desperate plan that would probably get the freighter captain killed. There was a long pause. Then Taewon laughed. "You're insane. But what the hell? I didn't like living forever anyway." The Morning Star changed course, accelerating toward the enemy ships. Its captain broadcast a false distress signal, claiming engine failure and loss of control. The enemy ships ignored it at first, focused on the station. But Taewon kept coming, his trajectory putting him directly in the path of their formation. At the last possible moment, the enemy tried to maneuver. Too late. The freighter struck one of their ships with massive force. Both vessels were destroyed instantly, but the collision scattered the enemy formation and damaged two other ships. The station's defensive systems took advantage of the chaos. Concentrating fire on the damaged vessels, one exploded. The other tried to retreat but ran into a minefield that Deho had ordered deployed minutes earlier. The remaining enemy ships, suddenly outnumbered and outgunned, surrendered. The command center erupted in cheers. Nira touched Deho's arm gently. "Taewon? Dead," Deho said quietly. He knew. He did it anyway. A hero. One of many. Deho pulled up the casualty lists. So many names. Human and Velkari, soldiers and civilians. All dead because extremists couldn't let go of hate. But the battle was not finished. The third enemy group, having heard of the defeats, was fleeing toward deep space. They still had 6 ships, and if they escaped, they could strike again later. "All vessels pursue," Deho commanded. "We end this now, today." The chase lasted 3 hours. The enemy ships were fast, but the combined fleet was faster. They caught up near the edge of the Delmar system, a mostly uninhabited region. The enemy turned to fight, desperation making them dangerous. The battle was fierce. Both sides took losses. A human destroyer was crippled. A Velkari cruiser lost half its crew. But Deho directed the fight with ruthless efficiency, positioning his forces to create crossfire zones, cutting off escape routes, exploiting every tactical mistake the enemy made. He was everywhere at once, it seemed. Directing fire patterns, coordinating movements, predicting enemy responses before they happened. The ship commanders began calling him by a new name. In human standard language, some called him the Ghost. In Velkari, others called him the Blade. But the name that stuck, spoken with a mixture of awe and fear, was simpler, the God of War. Because in those desperate hours, as he orchestrated the destruction of an entire enemy fleet with minimal friendly losses, he seemed almost superhuman. His tactical decisions were perfect. His timing was flawless. He saw patterns that others missed, opportunities that others couldn't conceive. The last enemy ship tried to ram a human carrier in a final suicide attack. Deho saw it coming, predicted the exact trajectory, and had 3 ships waiting in position. They destroyed the enemy vessel seconds before impact. Silence fell across the command channels. Then slowly cheers erupted. From human ships, from Velkari vessels, from the command center where Nira and her officers stood, they had won. Against impossible odds, against a coordinated attack designed to restart the war, they had won. And they had won together. Deho leaned against the tactical console, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept him going faded, leaving only pain and weariness. His shoulder throbbed. His head ached. But they had won. Nira embraced him. "You did it. You saved us all." "We did it," Deho corrected. "Every ship out there, every captain who chose to trust. They're the heroes." "No," said Princess Hana, who had been. The days following the battle were filled with investigation and revelation. The full scope of the conspiracy emerged as intelligence officers from both species worked together, piecing together evidence. Admiral Soyan had spent years building her network, recruiting extremists from both sides. carefully manipulating events to bring the civilizations to the brink of war. But what surprised everyone was how close she had come to succeeding. If not for Deho and Nira's quick action, if not for Princess Hana's change of heart, if not for the trust built between military forces, the war would have resumed. Billions would have died. The human government issued a formal statement, acknowledging the conspiracy and reaffirming their commitment to peace. The Velkhari High Council did the same. The war tribunal was dissolved. Nira's authority was fully restored, and both sides agreed to strengthen, not weaken, their alliance. Deho stood before a joint assembly, the first time in history that human and Velkhari representatives had gathered in one place. The Great Hall was filled with thousands of attendees, with billions more watching through broadcasts. He had not wanted to speak. He was a soldier, not a politician, but Nira had insisted. "I am not a hero," Deho said, his voice carrying through the hall. "I am a man who did what was necessary. But I am not alone in that. Every ship captain who trusted orders from a foreign commander, every soldier who fought beside former enemies, every civilian who chose hope over fear, they are the real heroes." He paused, looking out at the assembled faces, human and Velkhari sitting together, listening together. 300 years of war taught us to hate, to fear, to see each other as monsters. Admiral Soyon and her followers tried to use that hatred to drag us back into darkness. They nearly succeeded, not because they were strong, but because hate is easy, fear is easy, trust is hard. Deho's eyes found Nira, sitting in the place of honor. But trust is possible. I learned that from your queen. She trusted me when her own people did not. She chose peace when war would have been easier. And when the moment came, she fought beside me, not as a political ally, but as a partner, as a friend, as my wife. The hall erupted in applause. It started with the human delegation, then spread to the Velkhari. Soon everyone was standing, the sound thunderous. When the noise finally died down, Deho continued. The extremists believed we were too different to coexist. They were wrong. We are different. But difference is not weakness. It is strength. Human creativity and Velkhari discipline. Our adaptability and your endurance. Together we are more than either species could be alone. He stepped back, finished. The applause came again, longer and louder. Nira joined him on the stage, taking his hand in two of hers. The peace we built once was fragile, Nira said, addressing the assembly. Built on hope and necessity, but not on understanding. The peace we build now will be different, stronger, tested by fire and proven true. We will honor those who died, both in the long war and in this recent crisis, by ensuring their sacrifices were not in vain. The assembly passed resolutions that day that would reshape both civilizations, joint military academies where both species would train together, cultural exchange programs, scientific collaboration, economic integration, and a new governing body, the Alliance Council, where both humans and Velkhari would share equal authority. But for Deho, the most important moment came later, in private. He and Nira stood in their quarters watching the sunset over Velkhar Prime. The city below showed signs of repair. Construction crews worked day and night to rebuild what had been damaged. Life continued. "I have news," Nira said softly. "The doctors confirmed it today. I am with child." Deho turned to face her, speechless. A child. His and Nira's. The first hybrid of both species. Is it possible? He finally asked. The doctors were surprised too. Our biologies are different, but not as different as we thought. The child will be unique, neither fully human nor fully Velkhari. Something new. Deho placed his hand gently on her abdomen. What will people say? Some will celebrate. Some will protest. But this child will be a symbol. Living proof that our species can not only coexist but create something beautiful together. He held her close. I never thought I would have a family. After so many years of war, I assumed that part of life was behind me. You have a family now, me, and soon our child. And in a way, both our peoples. Princess Hana visited them that evening. She had changed in the weeks since the coup. Her anger had softened. She had spent time with human survivors of the attacks, hearing their stories. Slowly she was learning to see past her hatred. I came to apologize, Hana said formally. Not just for my actions during the coup, but for my attitude since your marriage. I was wrong. About humans. About you, Captain. About everything. You don't need to apologize, Deho said. You loved your parents. Grief and anger are natural, but I let them control me. I let Soyeon use my pain as a weapon. Hana looked at both of them. I watched you fight together, saw how you trusted each other, protected each other. That's what our parents would have wanted. Not revenge, but peace. Nira embraced her sister. You found your way back. That's what matters. I heard about the child, Hana said. I want you to know I will protect this child with my life. My niece or nephew will grow up in a world where humans and Velkari are allies. I will make sure of it. General Minho also came to visit, bringing news from the military. The joint training programs are starting next month. Human and Velkari officers learning together. The troops have been asking for you, Captain. They want you to lead the first class. I'm not a teacher, Daeho protested. You taught an entire generation that peace is worth fighting for. I would say that makes you an excellent teacher. Commander Jiwon, who had become a close friend to both Daeho and Nira, brought word from intelligence services. We've arrested the remaining conspirators, both human and Velkari extremists. The networks are broken. There will always be those who resist peace, but they are no longer organized, no longer a threat. Good, Daeho said. But stay vigilant. Hate has a way of surviving. The months passed. Daeho took up his role as an instructor, teaching young officers from both species about tactics, strategy, and something more important than either, trust. He shared stories from his years of combat, but also from his journey toward peace. His classes became legendary, always full, with students hanging on every word. Nira governed wisely, strengthening the alliance day by day. She traveled to human worlds, learning their cultures, meeting their leaders. She became a symbol of unity, respected and admired by both species, and their child grew. The doctors monitored the pregnancy carefully, amazed by what they were seeing. The child was developing traits from both parents, a perfect blend of human and Velkari genetics. It was something that should have been impossible, but nature had found a way. The day came when Nira went into labor. The entire palace was on edge. Doctors from both species stood ready. Daeho held his wife's hand through the long hours, whispering encouragement, sharing her pain. And then finally a cry. Small and strong, alive, the child was perfect. She had her mother's silver skin, but softer with a human warmth to it. She had her father's eyes, brown and deep. She had 4 arms like a Velkari, but proportioned like a human's. She was unique, beautiful. A new beginning made flesh. They named her Sena. In human language, it meant world's grace. In Velkari, it meant new dawn. When Daeho held his daughter for the first time, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Pure, uncomplicated joy. This tiny being, so vulnerable and so precious, represented everything he had fought for. Every battle, every sacrifice had led to this moment. She's perfect, he whispered. Nira smiled weakly, exhausted but happy. She is us, both of us. The best of both. News of the birth spread quickly. Celebrations erupted across both civilizations. In the streets of human cities and Velkari worlds, people gathered to honor the child who would bridge 2 species. Artists created images of her. Poets wrote verses. Children sang songs about the princess of 2 worlds, but there were protests too. Human extremists called the child an abomination. Velkari purists claimed she was an insult to their heritage. Security had to be increased around the palace. Threats came daily. Daeho stood on the balcony one evening holding Sena in his arms. She looked up at him with curious eyes, too young to understand the controversy her existence had created. Your father was once called the god of war, he told her softly. I fought in more battles than I can count, killed more enemies than I want to remember. But all of that, all the violence and death led me here, to your mother, to peace, to you. He looked out at the city. There will always be those who hate, who fear, who want to divide us. But you, little one, you are proof that they are wrong. You exist, you are real, and you are loved by both our peoples. Sena made a small sound, reaching up to touch his face with one tiny hand. I fought so that you would never have to. Daeho continued, so that you could grow up in a world where humans and Velkari are not enemies but friends, where your mixed heritage is celebrated, not condemned. I cannot promise you that world will be perfect, but I promise it will be better than the one I knew.